Alice. Instead of making Persona 6, let's just milk the same game for the next 9 years. Persona 5 The Phantom X is a free-to-play mobile gacha game set in the Persona 5 universe. And let me just be blunt here. P5X is simultaneously some of the best work Atlus has done, but it's plagued with a lot of common gacha game tropes that, as a Persona game, you may want to think twice before playing. Having played on the Taiwanese servers for the past month, I thought I'd be able to recapture the excitement of playing P5 for the first time again. While I definitely felt glimpses of what could have been a fantastic spin-off single-player game, its systems are affected by a mobile game-first approach, and its player retention and monetization tactics are not designed to be the most ideal Persona experience, but rather a way to artificially prolong your playtime while modifying the original P5 staple mechanics to fit its mobile game needs. Hi, my name is Psyche, and welcome to possibly one of my most controversial videos made to date. Despite this game not even being released globally yet, I'll be giving a long overview of the game just to let the upcoming Western fans get a taste of what's to come, covering every mechanic pertaining to the gacha and progression, and ultimately answering the question why I think P5X is a fantastic experience, with some major caveats. First, some disclaimer as always. This video represents my own opinions as a creator that covers gacha games. A critique on a game is not a critique on you. If your response to everything I say is, well, I don't care, I'm gonna play anyways, then fair enough, you win, end of discussion. I hope you have a great time playing P5X. After all, I'm not here to stop you from having fun. So a little background, I played Persona 4 Golden and 5 Royal in the summer of 2020, back when the pandemic hit. At the time, vividly, I remember that I usually have my window open next to my laptop that I played on. And the feeling of listening to the warm summer rain outside while playing 4 Golden, doing my social links, going to club activities, battling shadows in the TV world, something about that mood and atmosphere makes me feel nostalgic just thinking about it. And I was already in my 20s at the time. And the music, don't even get me started on that. If you argue that Persona's soundtrack is the best in all of video gaming, hey, I'd honestly see some validity in that. Shortly after, I went ahead and bought the hard copy version of P5 Royal for the full $60 for the PS4. I was still riding that high after having finished 4 Golden. I didn't know what was in store for me, but all I knew is that I wanted more. And oh boy, did P5 Royal deliver. Walking down the busy nightlife of downtown Tokyo, accompanied by the lo-fi melancholic soundtrack, building your bond with confidants and delving into the mementos. There's something indescribable with playing Persona. Royal hooked me from beginning to end. It was a full, organic, fulfilling journey. That's an experience that will stick to you for a while. It shocked every Western fan that P5X will be released in China only, with no global server in sight even after 1 year. The game itself is developed by Black Wings Studios, a subsidiary of the Chinese publisher Perfect World, with Atlus having most of the creative involvement in the story. This gives fans just the right amount of ammunition to say, hey, Atlus isn't evil, they're developing the good parts of the game. Oh, but the scummy gacha aspects? Oh, that's all Black Wings. When I see people waiting incessantly for the global release of P5X, I just want to say, look, I get it. People are tired of waiting for the next installment in the franchise. They just want something new, and due to the similarity and brand recognition, this game happens to pose the question, how would you like to rejoin the Phantom Thieves and experience Persona 5 for the first time again? So what's the story about? Well, I guess I'll ease everyone on the plot up until the first palace. The intro opens with Joker infiltrating the casino, same as the OG story. Which kinda makes me think, if you can port the sequence to a mobile device, why not just release the entire P5 on a mobile port as well? Anyways, as he battles some shadows, a mysterious masked assailant attacks him. After pulling the trigger, the self-insert protagonist, codenamed Wonder, wakes up and starts his new school life in Tokyo. Unfortunately, due to the language restriction, you're only allowed to input 6 characters in your player name. Don't worry guys, I can blend in. You can edit your player profile and put in whatever signature you want. The game's timeline runs parallel to the original Persona 5 as an alternate universe. The twist is that instead of taking someone's desire away, the people of this version of the world have been sapped of all motivations and desires. And your job as the Phantom Thieves is to restore that meaning to everyone's lives. Lufel, a talking owl that Wonder stumbled upon, explains the ordeals of this world, and urges Wonder to open his third eye and confront his doubts. Awakening his persona, a mysterious figure comes to his rescue. Is that Jonkler? He helps Wonder defeat the shadows, and simply utters the request to rebel before vanishing. Lufel, whose codename is Cattle, comes up with the idea to form the Phantom Thieves. By the way, his name will likely be localized to Le Fay or something when the global version releases, since, Morgan Le Fay? The Velvet Room is located in an underwater tunnel of some kind this time, with the attendant Merope taking the reins to oversee your persona needs. Oh, I guess that Pinocchio-looking guy is there too. Meanwhile, in the real world, you hear of a rumor that a middle-aged man named Takeyuki Kyuchi gets his kicks from deliberately bumping into other people on the subway under the pretense of it was just an accident. No one knows why he does this, but because of everyone's lack of motivation to get involved, there's nothing anyone can do. Not even the police can arrest him. If he said it was an accident, then that's that, and he was free to go. That is, until one day, your classmates Motoha Arai and her friend Tomoko were unfortunate enough to run into Kyuchi. Sensing the danger, Tomoko pushed Motoha out of harm's way, but was shoved into the subway tracks. Of course, she would get rescued by the subway attendants, albeit hospitalized shortly after. Motoha, realizing that the same metaverse app is appearing on your phone too, wishes to join your cause. Fueled by the desire to avenge Tomoko and bring forth real change, she awakens her persona and is granted the Phantom Thief codename Closer. As you venture into Kyuchi's palace, you learn that he was once a ferocious contender for the big leagues in a baseball career. However, during one game, he pitched a ball at full force, yet Motoha, an elementary schooler at the time, was able to hit it flawlessly. Because of this incident, Kyuchi's career started to falter and crumble. From there, he harbored a hatred towards others that he expresses by intentionally shoving and bumping into them, which is probably the reason why he originally targeted Motoha in the subway at all. Motoha realizes if this was all her fault. This man's promising career was ruined because of her actions. Maybe she ought to quit the baseball sport as well. Of course, after reminding her why this is clearly a skill issue on Kyuchi's part, you plot to venture into the deeper parts of the palace. This place hides the treasure that caused Kyuchi's twisted desire, and stealing it would cause him to realize his wrongdoings and divert to the path of righteousness. At the same time, providing the catalyst to show to the world that real change of heart can happen after all. As expected of a Persona game, I love the way each storyline flows to the next. You can tell that the writers and designers that worked on the story are mostly unchanged from the OG Persona 5. Some would even say that the storyline for P5X is better than the original, especially when it comes to that third palace. Also, I gotta say, Motoha is an extremely well-written character. To put into perspective, my favorite love interest in Persona 4 is Chie, so Motoha's optimism, strong will, and slight tomboyishness is just perfect all around. This is the general outline for the first palace in P5X. I know for most fans watching, this almost feels like a dream come true. It's all the elements of the original game that I've grown to love, and it really feels like I get to experience the wonder of Persona 5 all over again. I know P5X being a gacha game will be hard to stomach for many fans. Due to the story that I described, I'm sure that got a lot of players' hopes up for the global release. It seems like the Persona magic is well and alive after all. However, I must warn that from this point onwards, I'm gonna be raining on your parade a little. For the record, I literally cover gacha games on my channel, and I generally have no problems with a developer trying to break into the mobile gaming market. I want to feel immersed and involved in an ever-changing game world, and gacha games can provide a casual experience in that regard. And hey, I know how big mobile games are these days. Sure, profit might be an ulterior motive, but if the game stands on its own, provides a rich and expansive universe, and has good overall qualities, then by all means go for it. Now, Persona has never really been about building a massive world. If you take a look at the past entries, all of them revolve around the life of a typical high school kid. It's about appreciating the day-to-day moments of one's teenage years, getting involved with a group of friends, and building a tightly knit community. My first question to P5X is, how does a Persona game benefit from being a gacha? The gameplay for P5X remains mostly unchanged from the OG. You fill a team of 4 members and a navigator. However, baton passes no longer give an additional turn and are just an extra attack. Hold-ups aren't a thing anymore, so you just get a prompt for an all-out attack. Instead of sparing an enemy, some of them will just become a persona after a battle concludes. The highlight skill is basically the ultimate. It shares its gauge universally, and you can use any thief's highlight skill during any ally's turn. The navigator also has their own dedicated panel where their skills can be used before you act. Some enemies have a shield meter next to their health. This basically indicates the amount of times you have to hit them with an effective element before they're stunned. Given that P5X has a much bigger roster, it becomes possible to build mono-element teams to exploit enemy weakness over and over. Given that the game obviously can't just let you knock everyone down in one go and just end the fight with an all-out attack very easily. As a gacha game, they need to incentivize players to pull and use certain elemental affinities. It's less about covering your bases with as many elements as possible, but rather honing down on a specific one to make fighting certain enemies easier in the endgame. A popular sentiment that often arises when it comes to justifying the gacha model is that, well, if the story can be enjoyed for free with characters given to you, then I'll just not interact with the gacha at all and just treat P5X as a single-player game. Now, this is a good mindset to have, but something I want to point out is that, as a live service mobile game, the gacha system is not the only thing defined by this model. We'll start with progression. As a reminder, progression in the original Persona 5 is mostly tied to a story. As you clear the palaces and unlock deeper memento levels, you'll naturally gain more XP from defeating foes to level up your personas. In Persona 5, generally speaking, grinding is not necessary or actually fairly inefficient if you're just playing casually, since farming the memento dungeons you currently have access to will start tapering off in XP efficiency, so you might as well progress in the story to unlock the deeper memento floors. A misconception about this game is that if you came from the regular P5 or don't play many gacha games, your initial instincts on how to level up fast is by grinding mementos or taking on the story palaces. This is not how it works in P5X. While you can do that for a ridiculous amount of time, the most efficient method to level up is to simply do your dailies or spend stamina. These typically give out the most amount of player XP relative to all other activities in terms of time spent. This is nothing new in gacha games. The reason? Well, that's to artificially prolong your playtime and form a habit for you to come back every day. So if you want to progress efficiently in P5X, just spend 5 minutes every day doing dailies, then log off and come back tomorrow. The problem here is that certain upgrades and main story chapters are locked until you reach the required levels. So if you're thinking of just playing the main story as a single-player game in one sitting, that will not be happening. Just keep doing dailies and you'll unlock a bunch of stuff, including future palaces and higher ascension levels for your thieves. You might think that it sort of betrays the Persona spirit, but this is exactly how these mobile games work. How do we make the Phantom Thief stronger? Well, starting with Wonder, his level is tied to your account level, and he is mandatory to bring into any team. He can carry up to 3 personas and a weapon with a max level cap of 80. You can also put perk points into Wonder to boost stats. Contrary to what you might be used to when playing Joker, Wonder is actually pretty weak in this game. He usually does peanut numbers compared to the rest of the cast, and is mostly used for supporting purposes. The reason? This is a gacha. If the free protagonist given out to everyone can steamroll opponents, then there's no point in pulling characters from the gacha. The only exception people noted is if you bring Yoshitsune with supports, but come on, when is Yoshitsune not busted in a Persona game? You can level, merge, or inherit skills from other personas. Just a warning, this is a live service game, so you can't save scum to inherit the skills you want. Upgrading Persona uses the common soul currency and its own XP materials. But what about the other Phantom Thieves? Well, their levels can be increased to 80, separated by ascension levels. Both leveling and ascending use their currencies. This is the same for weapons. Instead of itemizing personas, you mostly get them from the gacha, where the game can give out quite a number of 4-star ones. Weapon leveling and ascending also have their own currencies. P5X follows the footsteps of Punishing Grey Raven and Honkai 3 in the sense that all characters have their dedicated weapons. So if you get Motoha's weapon, only she can use it. It's useless for anyone else. Characters can be limit broken to up to 6 additional times when you pull more copies of them in the gacha. For weapons, every second limit break level will actually let you use any other weapon within the same rarity, so pretty generous there. Each thief's skills can also be upgraded to 10, requiring its own currency, and on higher levels, you have to use a material farmed in weekly bosses that drop in limited quantities. Moving on to RNG relics, here's how it works. You can equip these tarot cards to each thief, all with their own set bonuses farmed in a separate mode. The tarot cards are split into Sun, Moon, Star, and I don't know what this last one means, but you get 4 slots in total. You get set bonuses when you equip 2 or 4 cards belonging to the same set. The Sun slot always gives max HP as its main stat, but the other 3 all have their own range of main stats. Each card can be upgraded to level 25, and each 5 levels will either increase one of the substats' potency or add a new one if it didn't already start with 4. There is a 5th slot occupied by the Galaxy card. This card, when combined with a set bonus, will give the thief a further boost. It always gives attack and defense as its main stat, and it can also be leveled to 25. There are 3 ways that I saw where you can manipulate the stats to make it more desirable. The first is by merging useless cards to get a new one. The second is by using these ink bottle tokens to manually choose which main stat to place on a card. Just a warning, this does not guarantee any of the substats, so you can still get screwed there. There's also the way to revert the upgrades made to a card and reset it to its base version while refunding the upgrade materials. You basically get a second chance at rolling desirable substats if you fudge it the first time. During my 1 month of playing, I got 1 ink bottle token from a lottery and 0 of the reversion tokens. Now, I'm sure there were things I could have done to get more, primarily through events, or what I'm saying is that as a method to incentivize endgame farming, you can bet that you won't be able to customize every tarot card out there. In case you played gacha games before, this is pretty much a carbon copy of Genshin's artifact system. Modern gachas have more or less normalized this type of endgame grind for player retention. I just want to emphasize for anyone new to the gacha scene that this is nothing new. Plenty of titles do this. A lot of the games I play do this. I have nothing against this type of system being in the game. The only thing I will argue against is people claiming that this is somehow better than the other gacha games. Genshin also has the feature to recycle useless artifacts or manually set a main stat. Some might argue that you likely won't need that much investment into the tarot cards if you're just doing story content, except you can make the exact same argument in Genshin. If you're okay with this, you're okay with this. Upon reaching player level 70, there will be an additional tab that opens up in the roster menu. Here, you can make further upgrades to a thief's stats. You get the currency to upgrade these by engaging with late game challenge content. At this point, you might be wondering, well, hang on a sec, why are all these systems in the game? Compared to the OG P5, I didn't have to level or send weapons, I didn't have to farm RNG relics, I didn't have to grind to max out some passives. The reality is that this is what a gacha model does to a game. It's not just the gambling part that you have to worry about. Again, I have nothing against these systems being in a gacha game. My gripe is that this is also in a Persona game. I'm here thinking, why in the world should I engage with all these mechanics to waste my time when I can just be playing P5 Royal that skips out on all this unnecessary fluff? What often differentiates between a review for a single-player game versus a live service one is that the question is not to ask, how would you like to play the game? It's, how would you like to play a game every day for the foreseeable future? Let's see how P5X handles daily gameplay. Contrary to the mainline titles, the date system has been completely scrapped. Once a new day starts, it will just say today or tomorrow, for example. This means there is absolutely no rush to do the main story palaces. You can take as long as you want with side activities until you decide to continue it. There is a stamina system with a cap of 240 units. You can spend said stamina in the memento farming stages, where you can farm for ascension materials, skill level up materials, common currency, tarot card sets, and even certain personas. Unfortunately, there is no full-on sweep feature in the game. After you complete a stage, the game will ask you if you want to spend stamina in bulk, claiming up to 5 times the amount of rewards, and expending the equivalent amount. This is better than nothing, and you can just put the game on auto mode with 3 times speed, so there's no need to do any work yourself. Instead of the day-to-day activities, you can store up to 20 activity points, and performing any action such as working a part-time job, raising a personality stat, or bonding with confidants will use up 1, with the exception that it will let you use 3 if certain conditions are met. 5 activity points are refilled every day. Coincidentally, you also have 5 time slots per in-game day. Once the day ends, the game will prompt you to go to sleep, then a new day starts. There's a number of activities you'll be familiar with, like having some coffee at LeBlanc, or buying seeds and tending to your garden, in which plants will take real-life time to grow, and then you can use it for gifts or cooking ingredients. Your personality traits go up to 20 this time, instead of 5. Confidant ranks are also increased to 20, doubled from the usual 10. Again, I probably don't need to say this, but these systems are artificially prolonged for player retention. Don't expect meaningful new development with your confidants in every meeting, and don't expect a certain trait to be maxed out until you're months into the game. In terms of gameplay content, there is the Mementos that's a set map and not randomly generated this time. You can unlock the deeper levels as you go, and proceeding to the next main story palace does require enough progression in Mementos. Speaking of palaces, they are easily the highlights of the game. They're much bigger than the ones in the original, and I really like the aesthetics and the puzzles that they had. Sure, not every corner is handcrafted, and some areas will look similar, but I overall enjoy the palace delving experience. In case you're wondering, the palaces do not disappear after you steal the treasure. It's still possible to go back and crack open every secret after you beat the boss. Now that we know what we're up against, how do we recruit fellow Phantom Thieves? Well, it's time to go gambling. Let's talk about the gacha system. There are two types of gacha banners in P5X, the guaranteed and 50/50 rate-up banners. We'll start with the 50% first. Character rarity is split into 4 and 5 stars. The premium 5 stars drop at a 0.8% chance and 4 stars at 6.2%. The rest of the 93% are the trash 2-star personas that no one wants. Heart Pity is at 80 pulls, and the featured character has a 50% chance of dropping when you pull a 5-star. If the first time you pull one is not the rate-up, then the next time is guaranteed to be the featured character. In a nutshell, this pretty much copies Hoyoverse's antics. If you played Genshin or Honkai Star Rail, you'll know exactly how it works. However, P5X does it one step better. If you don't want to gamble coin flips, there is also the 100% rate-up banner variant. Here, the chance for a 5-star is severely gimped at 0.2%, but the upside is that whenever you pull a 5-star, it's guaranteed to be the rate-up character. The payday has also been slightly increased to 110. Each pull costs 150 gacha currency in the form of this crystal thing. Now, there's a couple of gacha games out there with a 100% rate-up banner, primarily Punishing Grey Raven and Snowbreak come to mind. If you're still new to the gacha scene, in case it wasn't obvious yet, you always pull on the 100% rate-up banners. Why? Well, the first is that the worst case scenario to get the character is lower than the 50/50 banners. If we assume that you lose the coin flip, you have to pull 160 times to get the Phantom Thief you want. Alternatively, you can guarantee them with 110 pulls over here. Second, it's also easier to mentally manage your pulls with the guaranteed banners. Instead of tracking whether or not you've previously won a 50/50 across all the banners you pulled on, you can just treat your gacha currency not as a means to gamble on the gacha, but rather an entry ticket of sorts. If you have the equivalent of 110 pulls, you have the character you want. Very easy to calculate. So, if you roll the 50% rate-up banners, you are gambling for the chance to get the target early. It's just not worth it. The only exception I can think of is that if you don't care about which 5-star you get. In that case, go right ahead and go flip some coins. For the record, most of the newly released 5-stars are added to the standard pool, but not all of them. Classics such as Joker and Midkoto here are limited for some reason, meaning that until they appear on a rerun, it's not possible for them to drop from the gacha. On the 100% rate-up banners, once you accumulate 165 pulls, you also get a random 5-star selected from a pool. Pretty generous. During the game's 1-year anniversary, I actually got a selector that lets me pick from any of the existing limited characters, and this is accompanied by a few other standard SSR selectors. Again, generous. Now we move on to the weapon banners. As stated before, only a specific thief can equip their weapon, so the weapon system is much more restrictive than something like Genshin. During my time playing, I was able to get 4-star copies of weapons of pretty much all the characters just through gameplay. So if you're willing to settle with that, then by all means just don't bother with a weapon gacha. 5-star weapons drop at 0.8%, 4 stars at 8%. Each pull here costs 100 gacha crystals instead of the 150 from the character banners. Unfortunately, there's no guaranteed rate-up banner, so your selected weapon has a 50% chance of dropping whenever a 5-star is pulled. However, you are able to select 2 other weapons where if you lose the 50/50, one of the other 2 is obtained instead. Of course, the second time you pull a 5-star, then the rate-up weapon will drop guaranteed. The payday is at 70 pulls for weapons. Now, I'm sure someone can make the argument that the weapon banner is just for whales and you don't need it. I would mostly agree, except that I found that with limited characters like Joker, I wasn't able to get any 4-star weapons that he could use while playing. You are able to get 4-star weapons from EY's shop by completing weekly bosses a number of times or scrapping unneeded weapons though. It would depend on how big of a difference 5-star make whether this banner is worth it. So what do I think of the gacha system? Honestly, it's on the generous side. Not every game offers a 100% rate-up banner type, and I found the rewards to be plentiful during the time I played. The gacha is honestly one of the least problematic aspects of the game. I have virtually no complaints about it. Moving on to the cash shop. I bet other reviewers for this game aren't going to show you this. The currency shown in the footage is in new Taiwan dollars, so NT30 roughly translates to $1. You have the low spender pack for a 30-day supply for $5, where you get a total of 3,300 gacha crystals over the course of 30 days. Possibly the best value in a gacha game, but this is also to build your habit to log in every day. The premium track of the Battle Pass will cost you around $10, and you get a bunch of goodies, including some 5-star weapon selectors. You got some icebreaker deals, like this one, where for the low price of $1, you get 10 standard banner tickets and other good stuff. I bet you feel real stupid not taking advantage of this. Just kidding though, these offers are nothing new to gacha games. It's there to entice you to spend even a tiny bit of money. Since studies have shown that when a player has already spent money, it's way easier for them to justify spending more in the future. Something sunk cost fallacy. You also have your whale packs, where you can top up the gacha crystals directly. If you do some quick calculations, assuming we pity a 5-star at 110 pulse, that's around $130 you have to spend if we just buy top-up packs. Again, this is nothing new in gacha games. It might be a little hard to wrap your head around it, but guaranteeing a rare character with just top-up packs will usually cost around $200 in the gacha market. So I argue this is actually on the generous side. My overall thoughts on the cash shop in P5X is also pretty favorable. The low spender experience is very rewarding, and I can totally see a long-time player getting a lot of what they want, assuming that they keep playing. Of course, everyone will have their morals. If you find it scummy that the same iconic characters of Persona 5 are sold back to you as limited 5 stars in a gacha game, or how the cash shop betrays the spirit of the Persona experience, then you might not want to play this. However, I think most people will not have a problem with any of this. And in that case, you'll likely have a great time in P5X. As an IP-based gacha game, the monetization is surprisingly solid. Now we talk presentation. How good is the overall quality of the game? Well, let me start by saying that P5X has clearly borrowed a lot of assets from the original. This includes the monster designs, music, and literally the entire Tokyo map. That obviously doesn't mean there isn't new stuff. All the main story cutscenes are fully voice acted, the palaces are handcrafted, and there's a number of new music tracks that follow the P5 theme. If we take a look at gameplay, I noticed that animations can look a bit jagged at times, and it's very clear that the P5 aesthetics is doing a lot of the heavy lifting here. The main storyline has some solid action sequences, but quality of content outside of it may vary a little. Something else I want to comment on is palace exploration. Now, the stealth mechanic in Persona 5 has always been spotty. In P5X, the enemy detection AI is completely brain dead. You would literally have to go out of your way to let yourself be caught. Since if you just walk up to a shadow, you can pull off an ambush extremely easily. Guess there are a couple of compromises when you're making a mobile game. You gotta make those mechanics more casual friendly after all. There is a guild system, your personal palace space where you can decorate it, and even a Tycoon minigame. I did not go into these features in great detail, but it's there if you want a quick break from the usual gameplay loop. So what happens after you beat all the main palaces? What does the daily gameplay look like then? Well, I like to classify content in a live service game in two categories: curated and repeatable content. Curated content is the stuff that requires time and effort to create, such as the events or main story palaces. Meanwhile, repeatable content is kind of like the Radiant quests in Skyrim. An endless stream of stuff that you can do that takes little effort to develop, but the developers are able to create a lot of it at once to occupy your playtime. An example of this will be the mementos, even in the original P5. I doubt mementos is most players' fondest moments of playing the game, since it's just a long drawn-out dungeon where you try to find the exit. When you complete the main story, what will inevitably happen is that you'll be doing the repeatable endgame levels fighting the same enemies while you wait for new events to drop. Again, nothing new in gacha games. But if you come in with the mindset that every second of gameplay will be curated, you will be disappointed. Lastly, I want to talk about events. During the 1-year anniversary, there was a main story palace released. But prior to that, I was surprised to find that within the Events tab, there is a separate panel that conveniently archived most of the past events during the game's first year of runtime. Not all the past events are there, but still, this is pretty generous. Not all the gachas out there do this. Taking a look at a few of these past events, what you'll find is that it's basically an alternate version of each of the OG Persona 5 palaces, where the crew meets the original Phantom Thieves. A lot of the legwork has already been done, considering that the event stories literally just reuse parts of the palace to cut down on development time. Again, it makes me wonder, if you can port the palaces to a mobile game, then why not just release single-player Persona 5 on mobile too? In all fairness, there are still some original parts, and these events are fully voice-acted, featuring the OG cast as well. Once the game releases globally, I'll leave you to decide if the events are neat little fan service moments or just effortless slop. For me though, I don't really have a problem with the events being done like this, but just prepare yourself that the majority of events in the first year of the game will just have you revisit the original P5 palaces. For the record, Persona 5 The Phantom X shares a lot of common tropes with other popular gachas, and these mobile game mechanics by themselves are not what I have a problem with. The caveat lies with P5X also being a Persona game. I'll start by going over what I think P5X does equally or in some cases better than the OG version, then the more questionable points. In terms of aesthetics, P5X feels and plays like the game everyone has grown to love. The gameplay is mostly unchanged, the palace designs are top-notch, the music tracks are solid, and the story content by some accounts are even better written than the original P5. When it does Persona things, it does it really well. If P5X released as a single-player spin-off, this video wouldn't even exist. Now onto the not-so-good. The gacha model has affected the daily gameplay in more ways than one, and it's my opinion that a lot of set features take away from the Persona experience. It does not complement it. Progression is now done through daily missions and a stamina system, and gating story content so you can't complete them too quickly. The date system has been completely scrapped in place of activity points, which I think was one of the most staple mechanics in the mainline Persona games. Upgrades and RNG relics rely on grind and random chance to get the results you want, whereas you don't have to worry about any of this in the OG titles. The flashy and powerful characters in the game drop from the gacha, alongside their weapons. I understand that gacha is a necessary evil in the genre, and I'm not gonna even try to argue the "is it free-to-play friendly" angle. So let me just ask this. If the developers are generous and give out a bunch of free rewards, does that somehow make a gacha system not predatory anymore? To the Persona fans watching this, if you were to recommend an entry in the Persona franchise to a newcomer, which one would you recommend? In other words, if you want someone to have the best possible experience diving into the series, how far up would P5X sit on that priority list? The majority of Western fans have never even touched this game yet, but I think you already know the answer. One of the most important lessons Persona has taught me is that time is fleeting and time is limited. Enjoy your youth goofing off with a group of friends, forming bonds, overcoming challenges, and when it's time to say goodbye, be glad that it happened. Every day spent has purpose, whether that may be spending time in a school club, creating memories with friends, or delving into the unknown mementos. The overarching message across your 100-hour playthrough is that you know that these moments will not last forever, and it's about making new memories while there's still time left. In my opinion, this is why the endings of these games feel rather bittersweet, and why the experience is so special. I see P5X as almost a subversion of this formula. It's the head with a slightly wrong body, the gray sheep standing out from a group of white. Do I recommend it as a gacha game? Yes, I think it absolutely checks every box as one that stands on its own. Do I recommend it as a Persona game? Well, this is gonna be a hit or miss for Persona fans. You shouldn't come in here with the expectation of the single-player games. There are many mechanics that go hand in hand with the gacha model, but it's something you'll eventually get used to. Or alternatively, you might just say, nope, this ain't it, chief. Personally, I had a fantastic time playing P5X as a standalone turn-based gacha game in a stylized Tokyo setting. The quality and amount of polish definitely sits a tier above your usual mobile games. However, as soon as I saw the staggering amounts of upgrades and RNG elements to make a character become the strongest they can be, I suddenly started to steal some glances on my physical copy of Persona 5 Royal, reminding myself that there is a version of this game where I don't have to deal with any of this. P5X is personally not what I'm looking for in a Persona game, hence why I have some trouble recommending it. Despite everything I said, if you're still on the fence about this game, then I encourage you to try it when the global version drops and come to your own conclusions. It's very likely that it will be announced this year, with the release being either late 2025 or early 2026. Hell, it might even be announced later this month. In other news, while everyone's waiting on P5X, there's a remake of Persona 4 coming out. That's a game everyone's been hyped for, right? Anyways, that about does it for this review. If you want to catch more highly specific gacha content, you know what to do. As always, thank you for watching, and have fun out there.